Fresh trouble may be unfolding for Nnamdi Kanu, and this time it hits directly at the heart of his legal battle. As it stands, Kanu has just 90 days from November 20th to file his appeal against the life imprisonment judgments delivered by Justice James Omotosho. But here's where the problem gets deeper. Kanu has been moved to Sokoto, hundreds of kilometers away from his family, his allies, and most importantly, his legal team. And remember, by insisting on defending himself, the law now requires him alone to file his notice of appeal. Everything must be done in Abuja, yet he's been held in Sokoto, raising a very troubling question. How will he effectively prosecute an appeal from one of the farthest states in the country? Will the authorities be moving him back and forth every time he needs to submit a filing? Or is this relocation a strategic setback at a very critical moment in his legal battle? This is Political Arena, and today we're going to break down why this 90-day countdown may turn into Kanu's toughest challenge yet. Now, make no mistake, this is going to be one tedious process for Nnamdi Kanu, and time has already started ticking. 4 days gone, so he has just about 86 days to file his appeal, and it is going to be tedious. To put things in perspective, I'm going to run you through some of the things that Nnamdi Kanu would have to do if his case must be heard at the appeal court. But before we do that, Aloy Ejimako earlier today was on Channels Television, where he spoke on some of the challenges that Nnamdi Kanu might encounter now that he's in Sokoto.
And to everybody else who is a stakeholder in this case, that Mazin Nnamdi Kanu has no legal counsel. So as I speak, he still represents himself. But see, after the sentencing, I was surprised, and I think everybody else who was monitoring this case was surprised that he was plucked from Abuja and taken all the way to Sokoto, which is in the northernmost part of northwest Nigeria. So you begin to ask, how can he effectively prosecute his appeal, or even take the initial steps towards initiating his appeal? Initiating an appeal is not an easy thing to do. He has to file a notice of appeal. He has to request for the transcripts of the record of proceedings before the High Court, pay for them, review them, and do all sorts of things, all sorts of activities that will now play out before the Court of Appeal. And these things require his personal, physical presence to get these things accomplished, unless he hires a lawyer. And up to this point, he hasn't indicated that he's going to hire any lawyer, or he has not made known to anybody that he has hired any lawyer. So you begin to wonder whether he will be able to prosecute this appeal from his prison location in Sokoto. The Sokoto division or the Court of Appeal doesn't have jurisdiction over this case. It's the Abuja division. So putting him in Sokoto, I know it's true. It is not the fault of the judge. It is the fault of the executive branch. Once someone is sentenced, he becomes the property of the executive branch, in particular the correctional service. So that decision to put him in Sokoto perhaps did not take into account these concerns that I'm expressing. It is very insensitive to his rights. Prisoners do have rights. That you are in prison doesn't mean you have lost your rights under Chapter 4 of Nigerian Constitution, your fundamental rights, in particular Section 36, which is really what is relevant now. Can Nnamdi Kanu effectively prosecute his appeal, or even initiate it from that location in Sokoto? The answer is no. So what I think may play out in the coming days or weeks is to seek ways and means of ameliorating the detention conditions. The judge did not particularly order that he be detained in Sokoto. So we're looking at a situation where his right to appeal is being complicated by the current location of his imprisonment.
Aloy Ejimako earlier today on Channels Television. Prior to now, I had thought that Nnamdi Kanu's legal consultants can file his appeal, but they cannot, because he hasn't engaged their services. So basically, all the steps and processes required to file this appeal require the physical presence of Nnamdi Kanu. And I'm wondering if he took all of these into consideration before he disengaged his legal team. But let's not cry over spilt milk. Like I said, it is not going to be an easy process. And just so we understand how tedious it will be, let me run you through some of the necessary steps that must be taken by Nnamdi Kanu himself if this appeal must be heard. Now, for Nnamdi Kanu to properly file his appeal, there are 6 complete major steps that he has to take. Now, this is the first and most important document, which is to file a notice of appeal. He must state what part of the judgment he is appealing, the errors he believes the judge made, and what reliefs he is asking the court for. He must do this within 90 days from November 20th. The second one is to pay filing fees in Abuja. All appeals from Justice Omotosho's Federal High Court are filed in the Abuja division of the Court of Appeal. But Kanu is in Sokoto, not Abuja, so this creates a heavy logistical barrier. The third one is compiling the record of appeal. He must request for the CTC of the judgment. He must request for the CTC of the rulings, the entire proceedings as transcripts and exhibits tendered. All motions and responses he will also have to get a hold on. Without this, the Court of Appeal cannot hear the case. Ordinarily, lawyers handle this, but doing this himself from detention is extremely difficult. So the fourth one is his brief of argument. Kanu would have to file his brief of argument. This is a full legal document compiling his legal reasoning, his constitutional arguments, the precedents, and why the conviction should be overturned. Again, this is a technical document and requires legal expertise, unless, of course, Nnamdi Kanu would have to re-engage the services of his legal team. Other than that, doing this from Sokoto might be a bit difficult for him. And for a lot of people, taking him all the way to Sokoto is deliberate because they understand they must have taken all of this into consideration and they know for sure that it will be difficult for him to operate from there. So why take him to Sokoto in the first place? Anyway, back to the processes. The fifth one is he would have to serve all documents on the respondents, which is in this case the federal government. So he must ensure that the Department of Public Prosecution receives copies. If service is not properly done, the case most likely will stall. All right. And the final one is he's going to file additional motions if needed. He may need to file, motion for extension of time, motion for bail pending appeal, motion for stay of execution, motion for expedited hearing and all that. Again, all filings must be done in Abuja. So what exactly is the rationale behind taking him all the way to Sokoto? He has indicated interest that he wants to appeal the matter. Don't you think it would have been better for them to wait for the Supreme Court judgment? That's, of course, if this case will get to the Supreme Court before they can now decide, okay, this is the prison that he would have to be taken to. So the Sokoto complication is a real thing in this case. Kanu has been moved far from his family, his supporters, his legal advisors, the Abuja registry where the appeal must be filed. And since he is defending himself, this means he must personally sign, he must personally prepare and coordinate the filing of every single document from over 800 kilometers away. Now questions arise. Will DSS transport him to Abuja each time he needs to file something? How will he compile the record of appeal without lawyers? And can he meet the strict 90-day deadline? Is the relocation affecting his ability to assess justice? These and many more are some of the questions that people are asking, and these questions are pretty much valid. This is why many legal observers feel Kanu is facing fresh and significant trouble. So the next 90 days will determine the future of Nnamdi Kanu's legal fight. Will he beat the deadline? Will he get legal representation, or will the Sokoto transfer become a strategic stumbling block? This is Political Arena. I'd like to know what you think. in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one.